What is up, ladies and gentlemen? You are listening to the Rebels by Design Wrestling Podcast, brought to you by HustleJet ENT. I am your host, Steiner Recliner 83, and you are listening to episode number 20. On this episode, we are going to take into a dive of the 5-star match rating that normally is done by Dave Meltzer, who is a known wrestling journalist slash dirt sheet writer for many, many years. And for the longest time, he has been doing the match ranking for basically any wrestling match that has gone on for a number of years. This goes all the way back into the 1980s. But a lot of people do take these rankings into like a gospel, even though it really technically is more of a one-man's opinion. But on this episode, we are going to talk about a group of wrestlers who have never had a 5-star match rating by Dave Meltzer ever. And it is an interesting list of people that we're going to go through. But before we get into this topic, I want to mention that I do truly appreciate everybody who has ever downloaded and listened to any of the last 19 episodes. Making it to number 20 is a very special accomplishment for me personally. And without all you guys' support who has either watched on YouTube, downloaded on any of their different platforms, I truly do appreciate the support. And it makes it even more motivated for me to continue to do this. I know I haven't done a podcast in about a month now. I pretty much missed the entire month of October. And it wasn't by design. It was just things just got in my way of doing it. But I am back to do it right now to do this. And I hope you continue to listen, watch, or however you get this my podcast. Again, I truly appreciate it all. So, with that being said, let's get into the topic at hand. So, Dave Meltzer has been doing match ratings for, like I said, a very long time. And there are several major names in the history of wrestling that do not, in his eyes, ever had a 5-star match. And you're going to be quite surprised of this list when I go through who has never had one. And I want to go through my personal opinions of what matches that these people have had that I know of have done. So, after this episode, you listen to this episode and you feel like I miss a match, or you have other matches that you felt like that belong on this list, please leave it in a comment somewhere, and I'll hopefully be able to see it. And then that could be why we could have a second episode about this. But the main focus is because mostly these names that I want to listen a list are within the WWE ranks. Now, some of the matches that I listed on below these wrestlers are from other companies as well, but it spans their entire career. But the noticeable theme is that there are very, very few WWE matches ever hit the 5-star rankings, which is very strange to me. And I know, and for a long time, it was very far in between where you will see a 5-star match ranking happen, but within the last 10 years or so, he's been giving them up like candy when it comes to certain talent. Mainly people from Japan and AEW. Because Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, to name a couple, are very consistent of being given 5-star matches like nobody else. But the list that we're going to go through today is the following people. We got Kurt Angle, Edge / Adam Copeland, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Hennig / Mr. Perfect, Macho Man Randy Savage, Jake the Snake Roberts, Dean Malenko, Triple H, Rob Van Dam, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Mick Foley, and Brock Lesnar. Now, another piece that you will find out is, as well as they have never put a singles WWE women's match on the list either. And I listed a couple of them, a few of them that I know that list is probably going to grow, which also could point out to be a secondary episode as well. So, starting at the top of this list, we're going to go with Kurt Angle first. And to me, Kurt Angle was one of the easiest guys to say, this guy had a bunch of 5-star matches, in my opinion. While you all agree with these matches or not, they are not in any order. They just go off about memory and research. So the years are not going to be in order. Let's just put that. Let me make that clear about all these matches. But these are all matches that, one way or another, I felt they're a 5-star match. Now my criteria is maybe also a little different. It's valuing it's a combination of any category could probably make a match a 5-star match. Is it the in-ring match itself? Partly yes. Is it the crowd reactions to these matches? Absolutely yes. Is it the meaning, how much the match meant to the wrestling industry? Also plays a factor in this match. But there's one thing you're going to learn that I will say is, not every 5-star match involves to be a technical wrestling masterpiece. That makes sense. But in Kurt Angle's case, it is more of the in-ring match itself, but also the crowd reaction does play a part of it as well. So here is my list for Kurt Angle. We got Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 22, one of my favorite matches, period, of Kurt Angle's. Against The Undertaker in 2006, No Way Out. That match was originally rumored to be a possible WrestleMania match, but it ended up being the Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio triple threat instead because of the streak, and Undertaker, them not wanting Undertaker to become champion at that time because of the WrestleMania plans. But that match was excellent. Unlike it, I know he's a tough topic to have involved, but you can't ignore his matches, especially with Kurt Angle. Next, we got the 2003 Royal Rumble match against Chris Benoit. Again, one of the best pure matches you will find in wrestling, especially in WWE. The fans loved it. After the match was over, Chris Benoit got a standing ovation, just to show how the live audience truly appreciate what they just got. That's one of the bigger reasons why it made my list, is because the fans themselves truly appreciate that technical masterpiece. This one's interesting because I know people are going to be like, really, this match? Even though it wasn't the longest match. But it has so much stuff jam-packed in a very short match. I put Rey Mysterio, SummerSlam 2002. Now, this match was not known as the longest match, but what these two men did in the period of time they were given was absolutely amazing. And the crowd ate it up so much, which made it more interesting as well, and showed that how much chemistry those two really had. And kind of wish you saw more singles matches between the two of them than we ever got. But we had a ton of tag matches that followed up to this. Next, I have Hard Justice 2008 against AJ Styles. Again, Kurt Angle and AJ Styles, two guys who also had tremendous chemistry together. So, and I felt like this is one of their, probably maybe to me, this was their best match of the series of matches they had, was this particular one. Now, speaking of another one person that he also had tremendous chemistry with, we have Samoa Joe Lockdown 2008. Once again, this is kind of shows a little bit that Kurt Angle was doing a lot of good stuff in 2008. But to me, this was a unique match because not only was it a unique style of match, because they really kind of embraced the ultimate fighting aspect in this match. Um, this was one of these. To me, it was one of them. It was so good as well as different. And I really truly enjoyed it. Of course, Kurt Angle is known to have great chemistry with a lot of people, as we'll see. Um, which brings me to Brock Lesnar. Probably one of my favorite opponents that he's always when he's in the ring with Brock Lesnar. You know you're gonna get something special between the two of them. And we saw a great example of that in 2003. Starting out with WrestleMania 19 for the WWE title. What makes it even more interesting is the fact that knowing how badly Kurt Angle was going into this match, as far as the health issues that he was dealing with, that we found out. Despite the fact that he had health issues, he was still able to pull out a tremendous match against Brock. Then we had another match against Brock was SummerSlam 2003 after he had returned from his injury. Again, they had another incredible match for the WWE title. And then, of course, we have the September 18th Iron Man match on SmackDown against Brock. The fact that not only did they have a tremendous match on SmackDown television, this was an incredible match. And it was a great storytelling as far as really establishing what Brock Lesnar was willing to do as a heel to gain some falls by getting himself disqualified a couple times by really working Kurt Angle down with a chair, but to bounce right back into getting the match itself and then winning the match at the end of it by getting some easy falls back after he destroyed Kurt Angle in the match. And the storytelling was great in this match. So next we got against the triple threat match at Vengeance 2002 with The Undertaker and The Rock. One of the probably a tremendous triple threat match for the WWE in WWE history. One of the all-time best that a lot of people still to this day praise about. Only comparing it to the triple threat match we saw at WrestleMania 20 in 2024. Obviously didn't involve these Kurt Angle at all. But we are going to go to WrestleMania 20 in a second because we have his match with Eddie Guerrero from that same WrestleMania 20. Again, another technical masterpiece, two different styles of technicians. Eddie Guerrero with more that Lucha Libre zing to it. Again, incredible match that does not get enough love from Dave Meltzer, obviously. I also got Judgment Day 2002 against Edge. The one thing you would learn about 2002, the combination of Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit as a tag team against Edge and Mysterio and Los Guerreros, Chavo and Eddie, they were just going out there throwing out so many different bangers. And it was great. And that's what we saw throughout that year, right? Which also brings me to No Mercy 2002, teaming with Benoit against Edge and Rey Mysterio. This match was to determine the first ever SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and it was just an incredible match that has shown how great chemistry these four men had against each other. And the final match I have on this list, feel free to add. There's one more I'm going to add. That's the final match, second to last. There's one more I'm going to put on that I put on here. I have of all the matches that he had with Stone Cold Steve Austin. He has a series of them in 2001. I thought the best they had out of the series was the one at SummerSlam 2001. Obviously, they had a lot all their matches they ever had against each other throughout the year were great. I loved them all. but I felt like this one was the best of the group. This is my honest opinion. Now, the last one I'm going to put on this list, it shows his ability, his period, how well he could take somebody who was never known to have a lot of classic matches in his own career. Lockdown 2010 against Mr. Ken Anderson, or Ken Kennedy for those who remember him in WWE. They had an amazing cage match that year, and Ken Anderson was, to me, to this day, I feel like this was his best match of his entire career. And the story that went into this match was very realistic. It really, Ken Anderson really come up as the biggest, as you would say, a-hole. And because of that, in what Kurt Angle was representing in this match, it was a great story for this match. And that concludes my opinion of Kurt Angle's five-star matches, in my opinion. Now, again, this is not a complete list. This is only my opinion. Feel free to leave comments and add your own, wherever you're getting this podcast from, whether it's on the YouTube channel or Spotify or wherever. Feel free to add your own. Like I said, this could lead to a number 2 episode regarding of this topic. So next we're going to go with Edge. So obviously, when you mentioned Edge in matches before, you're going to see some of the same matches repetitive again. So again, obviously Edge versus Kurt Angle Judgment Day 2002 is once again on this list. But here's some of the other ones that I have also. WrestleMania 2000 with the Dudleys again and the Hardys in the ladder match, which was the beginning of the series of the triple threat ladder matches and TLCs that those 3 tag teams have had. Which also puts WrestleMania 17 with the Dudleys and the Hardys and TLC 1. TLC 2. Because actually their one was at the SummerSlam. John Cena Last Man Standing Backlash 2009 is on here. I have obviously the same match I mentioned before with Kurt Angle, No Mercy 2002, teaming up with Rey Mysterio against Benoit and Kurt Angle. We have Undertaker versus Undertaker in 2008 at SummerSlam Hell in a Cell. Also, WrestleMania that same year, WrestleMania 24 against The Undertaker as well is on this list. We got Jeff Hardy Extreme Rules 2009. Matt Hardy Steel Cage Match Unforgiven 2005. Mick Foley WrestleMania 22 Extreme Rules, or Eddie Guerrero No Disqualification Match, SmackDown September 26, 2002 versus John Cena TLC 2006. Those are all my edge matches I have for one edge so far. Again, always said, like I said before, I'll say it again. Feel free to add your own. Maybe ones I missed, maybe the one that you feel should deserve on this list. Always welcomed. Now, next we have Eddie Guerrero, which 2 of the matches are I just mentioned with Edge and Kurt Angle, which was WrestleMania 20, and the no disqualification match in September 26, 2022 for Eddie Guerrero. Other matches I have for Eddie Guerrero: Rey Mysterio, Halloween Havoc '97, title versus mask. One of my favorite WCW matches of all time. Rob Van Dam ladder match, May 27th, Raw 2002, for the Intercontinental Championship. Dean Malenko, ECW, Hustle City Showdown, 1995. Eddie Guerrero, so far, I'm still trying to find footage of other matches that should be included to this list. So, like I said, there could be a part 2 of this because some of these are probably not fully completed, but I wanted to get this episode out. Kurt Hennig is another one that probably can get some additions. Who is next? Kurt Angle / Mr. Perfect. I have 2 matches against Bret Hart, King of the Ring '93 and SummerSlam '91. And I also have Nick Bockwinkel, November of 1986. There is a match that I'm trying to that I've heard about, but I never been able to find footage of. A lot of people are talking about a house show match against Bret Hart that was labeled to be better than both of the matches I listed here. So that's something another one to keep in mind. But Kurt Hennig probably should have more than 3 matches, but that's all I have so far. Which means there's going to be probably a part 2 down the line. Going back to this topic with additions. Next is Macho Man Randy Savage. I have so far Ricky the Dragon Steamboat WrestleMania 3. Probably one of the greatest in-ring matches of all time for WrestleMania 3. With a technical masterpiece, and the style was so jolly well. A match that really helped put DDP on the map. This match was DDP at Spring Stampede '97. Even though Macho Man did not win any matches, these matches were so good and helped really put over the next person he's in the ring with. It showed how good of a worker he truly was. The Macho Man was one of the all-time great in-ring performers of all time, and it's hard that makes people look good when you're in a ring against Macho Man, who is also known to be a perfectionist when it comes to how the match is supposed to go. Which is why the next 2 matches kind of showcases that. I have WrestleMania 7 against the Ultimate Warrior, and against Hulk Hogan WrestleMania 5. Because once again, we're talking about how well he sold for these 2 guys who were not known as work rate workers. It didn't have to be because the crowd for these matches also played a huge part of this. Then that's what, and a lot of it what's all about. Is, not only is it the ring work, very passable, it was not good, because Macho Man did, did the carry job, as they would say. So in this aspect, you'll find out with Hogan and Warrior that this was 2 of these great examples. Now, Hogan didn't have to do what he didn't have to work the way he did in Japan, because the U.S. but he did what he needed to do to entertain the U.S. audience. Ultimate Warrior was never known as being a great worker, but it shows with the right person it can work. This is in either those examples. Next is Jake the Snake Roberts. The only one I have seen so far that I can, seen footage of that I can put on list is against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, June 27th, 1986 at the Boston Gardens. So, this is what was the match I picked for Jake Roberts. Are there more? There's possibility, yes. But I haven't had a chance to see him yet. And so again, always pushing for recommendations to say, hey, you should probably check this one out. Next is for Demon Linko. I have 3 so far. One that I mentioned earlier with Eddie Guerrero, Hustle City Showdown 1995. I've also got Rey Mysterio, Halloween Havoc 1996, and as well as Starrcade 96 against the Ultimo Dragon. Again, Demon Linko technical masterpiece of matches against high flyers, and this works. It just always does. Are there more? Probably yes. Keep in mind, I haven't really been exposed to a lot of stuff he's done in Japan yet either. So you got a way for me to see those. Highly recommend them. Highly encourage you to send them to my way, and it can be part of the part 2 that is likely to happen at some point. Next is Triple H. Now keep in mind, I was never a huge Triple H fan. But to say he never had a 5-star match, which Bret Hart probably would say the same thing, but I do not agree with that statement. So the matches I have for Triple H, I have 4 of them for sure. Obviously SummerSlam 2002 against the returning to the ring of Shawn Michaels after 4 years. Again, still one of my favorite matches involving Triple H. This match was great. Obviously, Shawn Michaels coming back and showing that he still got it. The match was tremendous. And SummerSlam 2002 in general is by far, to me, one of my favorite SummerSlams of all time, because top to bottom was never a bad match on that card. Next, I have the triple threat match I talked about earlier. That I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. That involved Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels Triple H triple threat match at WrestleMania 20. I kind of mentioned this match a little bit when I talk about the triple threat match between Angle, Taker, and The Rock. That this is the other highly praised triple threat match in WWE history. I know how touchy and sort of Chris Benoit usually is at times, but I still have to acknowledge when he's involved in a classic match against one of these people that deserve their flowers as far as having a 5-star match, in my opinion. Next, I have the Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania 28 against The Undertaker. Again, even though the match layout was, it was kind of the end of an era match with such a tremendous story. What Shawn Michaels is or isn't going to do as a referee in this match, and another element of the story, especially when last 2 WrestleManias, how this match started to begin with was Triple H kind of avenging after Shawn Michaels' career was ended by Taker and nearly beating Taker at WrestleMania 27. Taker not being able to walk away on his own power was the story being told. Triple H, Taker wanted the rematch to prove that he could have, that it was no fluke that Triple H, that he could walk away after beating Triple H. That was the story going into this match, that he could do that. And Triple H, didn't want to be the guy that ended in The Undertaker, but Taker kept pushing, egging him on. Great match. So it deserves the credit. And of course, one of the matches that really put Triple H on the map as a main event player. That was the Royal Rumble 2000 street fight against Cactus Jack. This match, had everything. It was a brutal match as far as, the hardcore stuff that they did in this match. But you have to give credit where credit is due. This was the match that really concreted where Triple H was going as a performer. And it started one of Triple H's best years as a performer. 2000 was Triple H's year. No doubt about it. As an overall top heel in the WWE, or at the time, WWF. we knew he was the main event guy that they're pushing that towards the second half of '99, but this match was the one that was like the performance of all performers to say, yeah, Triple H belongs in that role. That's why I especially, put this match specifically on the list because of the significance of the match. The crowd loved it. It was highly praised, and what it meant for Triple H's career in a lot of ways. Next is Rob Van Dam. I have 3 of them so far. Once again, the Eddie Guerrero ladder match that I mentioned during Eddie Guerrero from May 27th. I have Living Daisy 99 against Jerry Lynn. And against the hardcore title match against Jeff Hardy, Invasion 2001 is my Rob Van Dam list so far. Hogan, I have so Hogan was an interesting topic because a lot of people think 5-star match always involving the work rate, which majority of this list was involving that. To me, though, Hogan is a different story because was not always about the work rate. It was more about even the simplest match layout was able to make something work to make it great. And the crowd being so heavily invested in these matches also played a significant role as well. So obviously I mentioned earlier against the Macho Man Randy Savage WrestleMania 5 during the Macho Man part of it. That was reason 1. Again, of course that match is going to be on this list because if I'm going to put a Macho Man list, it's going to be included on Hogan's list. The other one was, again, it had to do with the crowd and the emotion investment. That is against The Rock at WrestleMania 18. Because the match itself was just, as basic as it could be, but it didn't need to be any more than what it was. Because the crowd ate up every single thing going on in that ring. And that's what made that match a 5-star match. It didn't need anything else that went on in that match to make it great because the crowd itself was into it. For every move it hit, they reacted to it. And that would make something special because you have the crowd in your hand. And that's what also can make a 5-star match a 5-star match is because how much is the crowd invested in what's going on. This match is one of those prime examples of that. So speaking of those situations, there's 2 other ones that people are going to, well, the match wasn't that great. Like, it didn't need to be because of what the crowd was feeling during these moments. So I have his match against the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. And once again, the match wasn't anything special as far as a technical masterpiece. And once again, these was one of those examples that it didn't need to be. Because, again, the crowd was so invested in everything these 2 men were doing. You had a babyface versus babyface situation, which was very rare to see, especially in that time. And to have that to headline a WrestleMania on top of that makes it even more unique. So, that reason alone, once again, it was made it great. Now, it was supposed to be kind of a changing of the guard moment that didn't truly work out, but it made it very interesting. The other one I have to put WrestleMania 3 against Andre the Giant. I know that the match itself was not anything to write home about as far as the in-ring performance goes. Even though the story was great. As far as, can Hogan overcome the big giant? But once again, the crowd was so into it. And how much of that match meant to the rest of the industry in itself. That match was so important to the history of wrestling that How can it not be a 5-star match when it was the big attraction for that WrestleMania? It was sold the tickets. The body slam was heard around the world because no other single match highlight gets more playtime than that body slam. So it's one of those situations where how can it not be a 5-star match because of the moment that it created and what followed up with that moment and what it and the impact that it had for professional wrestling as a whole. Like so, those reasons alone are like that's why it's a 5-star match. Because once again, it's an example of one of those situations where the in-ring performance doesn't have to be, the most technically sound match in the world to be great. It's what sucks in the passionate wrestling fans to be in it for every single simple move and impact. Those were one of those examples. So those are my Hogan matches I have. Uh, the next so the next man we're gonna go to next is The Rock. Now The Rock is in it was another one that's very interesting as well. Honestly, I just mentioned one of his matches I have on the list against Hogan at WrestleMania 18. Um, and as well as the triple threat match with Kurt Angle and The Undertaker at Vengeance 2002. Obviously, those two matches were on his list as well because he was involved in them. The other two matches I have against Stone Cold Steve Austin twice, WrestleMania 17 and 19. These matches were I felt like for different reasons why they're the best of the series in my opinion. Obviously, The Rock winning one of them, also winning the other one was kind of interesting too. Austin being desperate to win the W Championship and to come in for the next and do whatever it takes to do it, and then The Rock, going over two against Austin, really wanted to get that final, that big win, and he finally was able to accomplish that. Little did we know this was going to be the last time we see Austin in a match for a very, very long time until he returned against Kevin Owens. So against another significant end of an era moment. Excuse me while I take a drink real quick. So this is what made that match. And both of the matches had, Austin and Rock always had great chemistry. And Rock had good chemistry with certain people, no matter what. Now, I know I didn't put any of his matches against Triple H on this list. I almost put the Iron Man, but I think that was probably the closest one of the series they had that I felt deserved the spot. But the other one I have for sure, so again, feel free to add your own. So we got two more left of the talent that were on this list. So the biggest names that never had a 5-star match through Dave Meltzer. So next we got Mick Foley. Mankind, Cactus Jack, call what you will. So obviously I just mentioned two of them early on. One was Edge and one was Triple H. His match with Triple H at Royal Rumble 2000, we just talked about. And the match against Edge at WrestleMania 22, which we already talked about. The words are the other ones I have for Mick Foley. I have, obviously, because of the iconic moments, the crowd reactions, how much of the highlight this match has gotten over the years for one simple spot. Insane. I have his Hell in a Cell match against The Undertaker at King of the Ring 1998. one of the most brutal matches in WWE history. Um, Also, speaking of The Undertaker, I have his match against Undertaker at SummerSlam 96, the Boiler Room Brawl, is also on this list. There's a sheer brutality match of hatred. And also the heel turn of Paul Bearer that nobody really expected to ever happen. Also, I have is against Shawn Michaels at Mind Games 1996. One of Mick Foley said himself, one of his personal favorite matches of all time. Um, and I have Cactus Jack against Sting, Beach Splash 1992 for the WCW World Title. And also have his hardcore match against Randy Orton, Backlash 2004. That really helps put over Randy Orton as a performer. And you gotta keep in mind how great of a shape Mick Foley got himself in for that match. He lost a ton of weight. He was like in the best shape of his career during that match. And he performed at top peak level in that match. And as brutal as that match was for a hardcore match, it really helped put Randy Orton on the map. And that's what, and also again, became another one of Mick Foley's favorite matches. And also, Randy Orton gives a lot of credit to Mick Foley for that match to help establish him. And the final guy is Brock Lesnar. Which again, three of them I already talked about was Kurt Angle, which was WrestleMania 19, the Iron Man match in September of 18, 2003, and the SummerSlam match. I also put another match that really helped put The Undertaker on the map in the first place. I mean, The Undertaker. Brock Lesnar on the map as a beast in the first place was the Hell in a Cell match at No Mercy 2002 against The Undertaker. This was was like the defining match that really, really put over Brock Lesnar as a monster star of the present and future for WWE at the time. We could talk about The Rock putting him over. We could talk about Hogan's, bleeding from the mouth and brutality. But this was like the match on pay-per-view that really, took Brock Lesnar to a completely different level, in my opinion. I also have Bryan Danielson's Survivor Series 2018 on his list. So since his return for the second run, I felt like this was his best match. There are a couple other ones I thought about putting on this list. Like such as AJ Styles the next year. Was another one I thought about. Again, these are my opinions. Because I know some of you probably would mention one of his matches against Roman Reigns or Goldberg, even. But to me, I'm not a huge fan of a match that's just them spamming finishers. That's what a lot of these Roman Reigns matches against Brock were. There's a bunch of German suplexes and F5s or Superman's punches and spears. I'm just not a huge fan of that style. But again, feel free to tell me wrong if I feel, but that's just how I feel. But you feel like there's other matches that should be on this list for Brock. Again, always feel free to reach out to me and I'll put them on the list and make a part 2 of this if there's enough of it. But these have to be genuinely like serious conversations that I want out of this. Now, and listen to a couple. So that's part of the little tidbit of this is there was never a WWE women's match on this list. The only women's matches you'll find are from Japan. And I don't necessarily agree with that because WWE alone, and now keep in mind, we're only sticking to on this topic today, WWE. When it comes to this topic, there is no WWE women's matches on this list. And I think this list is probably going to be a lot longer than it is, but this is my starting point for matches that I believe belong on this list. So, here's the ones I have so far. Now, keep in mind, take the full list, but I have, where I got 5 so far. Now, the first one is Bayley versus Sasha Banks, NXT Brooklyn 2015. The reason why this match is obviously on the list is for a lot of things, especially the importance of what this match meant to women's wrestling in general at that point. Because it was the first real long competitive women's match that WWE had seen in quite some time that was just blew everybody's minds for how good it was. Next I put on here was from this past WrestleMania. Io Sky versus Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley, WrestleMania 41. I remember watching it and live reacting to it on my stream on Twitch. Time Recliner 83 on Twitch, by the way. If you want to follow me there, I do some live stream stuff on there, gaming and Wrestle Chat on most Thursdays. When I can, anyway. And I was really floored about that match as well. Another one for a recent WrestleMania, Rhea Ripley again against Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 39. Again, a very incredible match that really, really boosted the career to superstardom for Rhea Ripley for getting the win against Charlotte Flair. Next is NXT TakeOver 2017. I have Asuka versus Ember Moon. Again, this was another incredible match, I felt like. So definitely, belongs on this list as far as WWE goes. And the final WWE match for women, I have Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, WrestleMania 38. This match was full of, it was a historical match for a lot of reasons, and it's a great overall match. And so that concludes my women's list so far that I have. Now keep in mind, I'm always welcome to more additions in the comments. I haven't really touched AEW yet either when it comes to the women's matches, because I think there's one on top of my mind I can always say, because the Toni Storm, Mariah May, now known as Blake Monroe, from All In, deserves a nod. That's All In. But again, we haven't really again. This is not. It was mainly the biggest stars. This list was mainly based on the biggest stars that have not had a 5-star match according to Dave Meltzer, as well as no WWE women's matches at all were also ever listed. So I started compiling my own list, and this is what I got so far. But once again, feel free to leave a comment of some other matches from these group of people that we're talking about, which were Kurt Angle, Edge, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Hennig / Mr. Perfect, Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake Roberts, Dean Malenko, Triple H, Rob Van Dam, The Rock, Mick Foley, Brock Lesnar. So feel free to add your own from those particular male superstars, and of course feel free to add any WWE women's match that should be on this list as well. And this would probably lead to with those responses that are taken seriously, of course, will obviously lead to probably a part 2 of addressing Dave Meltzer 5-star matches. But I wanted to dive into the specific, big names that are not on the list. Of course, we can dive into more of other people who deserve to have certain matches to be 5-star matches. Because so we are going to probably have a part 2 somewhere, which the compiled list I hope to get from the comments, of course. That's one thing I also want to do with my community. I want to interact with you all. I want to have, in some way, shape, or form, featured on a stream. In some capacity by reading comments and stuff like that. Because I love talking wrestling. I love talking wrestling to true wrestling fans. Obviously, you have to be in serious conversation with me for me to interact with you. If you're going to be, a certain way, you know what's going to happen. I'm not going to respond to you. You're probably going to get ignored if you acting silly. Because we're here all about showing love to professional wrestling as we know it. Because now women's wrestling is a different topic. I could have, I thought about a couple of matches between two of my all-time favorites. Because once again, it's about the crowd reaction and significance. And so that's why Trish and Lita main eventing Raw. I probably end up putting this on this list as well. I want to mention that one because this is significant of what that match meant to women's wrestling again, and the crowd was really into it, and they were also breaking billiards. Even though the match itself was not, 20 minutes or anything like that, it was not really that, or anything like that, but it meant so much, and the match itself for the time it was given was very good. But let's not talk about 2006 Forgiven, which was Trish's retirement match as a full-time competitor. Obviously, she's not fully retired. She comes out back and has matches here and there, but for a week-to-week regular basis, it was her last match again against Lita. Was a very good match as well. It deserves some flowers as well. Again, we're only talking about WWE so far, but I know there's more women's wrestling that was not seen on the main metro list at all. That wasn't in WWE, but it was in TNA and so forth. That also deserves to probably be listed and should be dived into as well, which I'm going to do that at some point. But for this episode, we're gonna wrap things up for this episode, episode number 20. Once again, I always appreciate anybody who watches me on YouTube or listens to the audio version on your favorite platforms. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and follow and continue to show you the support. Please tell your friends if you enjoy the content. And this has been Simon Recliner, A3 of Hustle.ent, the host of the Rebels by Design Wrestling Podcast. Everybody, please enjoy and and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you.